Connacht is approximately 20 kilometers squared. It's about 18,900 odd. Israel is falls short of that at about 15,000 square kilometers, roughly the size of Mayo, Roscommon, Sligo, Galway, and not Leitrim. And Palestine is made up of Gaza, the Gaza Strip, and the Golan Heights, which is approximately 5,000 square kilometers. And it has taken me literally 2 years to finally come to terms with what happened in October 2022 on the border between Gaza and Israel. In previous podcasts, I recall it took me 2 weeks to get over when the Russians crossed the Ukrainian border, and also the time when Syria fell apart. It didn't take me as long, and I suppose really it's because what has been happening in Israel and the Lebanon for the last 50, 60, 70 odd years, it's been personal for me. I lost a good friend over there. So where do we start when we think about that particular piece of ground? It has been the indigenous people of that area have been under the dominion of more than 8 different empires. You had the Greeks, you had the Romans, you had the Moors, the Muslims, the Byzantine Empire, the French, the British, and now it's the Israeli. And it's really just a passing of time that this particular piece of tract has changed hands so many times, and the people that have been there have never had a chance to decide their own fate, decide their own future for themselves. So Ireland has a deep logical respect for the Israeli state. The state of Israel should exist as according to the United Nations. However, the Irish have a deep graw, deep heartfelt feelings, passion for the Palestinian people and their struggle. If there's any other group of people in the world that has suffered genocide, famine, loss of property, loss of their right to practice their religions, loss of their language, loss of their culture, and to be under oppression for more than 700 years, it touches the Irish psyche. It touches that generational trauma that our parents grew up with, our grandparents and our ancestors had to be put through this. So when what happened in October 2022, when the Palestinian or the militant extremists, I covered them before. Yeah, militant extremists overwhelmed the Israeli defenses. That particular night, something like 5,000 rocket projectiles were fired into Israel. That, in effect, overwhelmed the Iron Dome, a missile shield that the Israelis have. Furthermore, I don't know how many thousand militant extremists crossed the border into Israel and inhumanely slaughtered, murdered, and kidnapped so many innocent Israeli citizens. That, for me, that was quite a shock. It beggars belief just how cruel the human person can become at that time. And from a military point of view, looking at it, originally I thought maybe this was a false flag operation where the Israeli government allowed the militants to cross into the border and create mayhem on their own people. However, uh, this was this was bound to happen. It was bound to happen on the grounds that um, over prior to October 22, um, the militant extremists were firing rocket projectiles on a daily basis into Israel, hundreds of rockets every day, and it was the tempo was increasing. They were increasing the amount of shots being fired into Israel, and you could only imagine from a senior commander point of view that as the logistical operation of the militant extremists was getting more and more um, tuned and enhanced, the more and more the Israeli Defense Forces would have to work to counter and to deter that. And so, when it came to the point where nearly 5,000 projectiles were fired at the Iron Dome and a few thousand militant Islamist extremists crossed the border and started creating mayhem, the first priority of any defense force is to protect their boundaries. And as such, at that stage, senior command had realized that their defenses had been compromised. And in order to re establish those security defenses, they were going to have to go in and push out the militant extremists, which is what they did. And after 2022, they crossed into Gaza and they discovered a vast network of tunnels. And it was fairly quick that they discovered them. They obviously were watching those tunnels for quite some time. And it makes so much sense when you think about it. 5,000 projectiles. That must have been at least 100 to 200 launching sites. And those launching sites would have been well covered, and each of those launching sites would have had a logistical access way. They would have had tunnels, elaborate tunnels, and inside those elaborate tunnels, they would have had stores of explosives, stores of missiles, workshops, logistical type facilities, catering for how many people would you have at a launch site? 5, and maybe 4 or 5 at the workshops. You're talking about hundreds of extremists working underground for the sole purpose of attacking the Israelis, and the networks that they had uncovered, it would have put Gibraltar, the Rock of Gibraltar, would have been put to shame. The amount of sophistication that was put into those tunnels, those storehouses, those launching sites, it would be on a par with what the Houthi rebels have in Yemen, and also the Iranian tunnel systems that they have over there. So it took years to dig those tunnels and to develop those facilities. And in one fell swoop, well, it must have taken it would have to take 2 years for the IDF to go in, locate those tunnels, and destroy them, and destroy everything that's within those tunnels. Because when you think about it, like if you've got a storehouse full of explosives, do you send in your most experienced explosive ordnance disposal experts to go in and start manually bringing that stuff up to the surface, or do you B, just explode the ammunition and destroy that bunker so it could never be used? And furthermore, when they destroyed those facilities, I can imagine that there would have been a lot of seismic consequences to those storehouses being blown up. And you have to hand it to uh, the wisdom of the people who actually designed and dug out those tunnels. If they actually cared about the people on the surface, they would have made sure that those tunnels would have been out in the desert or away from population areas. Instead, they chose to have them deep inside community, um, um, hugely populated areas. So naturally enough, the consequences of those explosions would have be in the vicinity of hospitals, schools, habitations of all sorts. I could be wrong, but I'm just making my observation on that. So, anyways, that's obviously what the Israeli Defense Forces would have done. That their first priority would have been to destroy the logistical operations of the extremist Islam militants inside Gaza. Their second priority would be to ensure or to build up a buffer zone between Israel and their neighbors. So going, I do recall that they've started, they've finished, they've probably finished by now, building all sorts of watchtowers and posts around that throughout the Gaza area to ensure that the next time somebody even threatens Israel with explosives or missiles or any sort of projectiles, the Israelis will be on top of them. So going forward, that particular area is going to be severely, heavily policed from now on. And just as of today, President Trump has tentatively announced that there is peace, or that they've come to an agreement with Hamas to release the hostages and to acquiesce to certain terms. And it'll be interesting to see how whether or not it does actually pan out. I really do hope that the hostages are released at this stage. So what about the Palestinian question? Again, they're literally back to square one. They realize now, surely they realize now that a military option to freedom is out of the question. And if anything, they don't have the logistics to do that sort of thing. So what can they do? Well, they can take a leaf from what we did. We have, over the centuries, we've produced some of the finest political figures, the likes of Daniel O'Connell, Parnell, De Valera, Michael Collins, and internationally, the likes of Mandela. It's all about striving towards peace. When you think about it, in an ideal, perfect world, when a nation of people occupies the territories of another nation, it's incumbent on those occupiers to reach common ground with the indigenous peoples and to enhance the living conditions of those indigenous people and the land that's around it so that everybody works together in harmony. Sadly, this history has shown quite the opposite. However, um, this is progress. Diplomacy, democracy, they're the solutions here. And I hope it doesn't take them 100 years to figure it out. That's all I have to say. Take care.